what should we take away from Thanksgiving other than full stomach? Well, we should take away what the word Thanksgiving suggests we should. I think it's not an accident that became an official American holiday at the order of President Lincoln. The country had gone through was going through, brutal civil war that almost killed the nation. And the fact that the country came through that, if not exactly intact, at least in a position to put itself back together, was a remarkable feat. So for me personally, it begins with being here. And I'll tell you a story about a day I thought I wasn't. Not too often in your life does it occur to you that you apparently have about 5 seconds to live. And that happened with me. I researched the dates to be sure. February 9th, 1971. And I remember the time, 1 minute after 6 in the morning. Bonnie and I were in bed, and I heard a noise, and I knew what it was. It was an earthquake. And I'd lived in Southern California for a while, so I knew about earthquakes, and they didn't bother me particularly, but I knew from the noise level this was a bad one. And you could hear it coming. It sounded like a train headed right into our bedroom. Sometimes they'll kind of roll along. And in fact, sometimes if you're standing out in the street, you can actually see the street wave as though somebody had waved a towel or a carpet. So I heard it coming, and I remember thinking very clearly, oh boy, this is a bad one. And I tried to hop out of bed because our little girl was asleep across the hall in her room, in her crib. And I needed to get across our bedroom and across the hall and across her bedroom because her bed was against the far wall. And there was a window above her crib, and I thought, well, that thing's going to spray glass all over her. So I tried to get out of bed, and the earthquake just flipped me back into bed. So I tried again, and the bed just got my legs out from under me, tumbled me back in bed again. So I finally grabbed hold of the edge of the bed and just muscled myself out. My wife had never been in a quake before, so she wasn't real sure what was happening. And I heard her shouting, the baby. I said, I'll get her. You get under the bed, which was not easy to do because she was pregnant. I didn't have time to explain it. So I finally got up, ran across the bedroom quite unsteadily. The floor was all over the place. I realized later I'd run barefoot across a shattered mirror and never got a scratch. So I got across the hall, got into her room, and her crib was doing this against the wall. It was backing up and slamming against the wall. Bang, bang. I thought that poor little girl was going to be terrified. I got over there and she was sound asleep. Never woke up. And the earthquake was gathering in intensity. It topped out at 6.6. That's a big quake. It was the worst one in the LA area in 80 years, the news reported later. So I picked her up, and the noise by now was incredible. The rumbling of the ground, and I could hear the walls cracking and snapping, and I couldn't navigate my way back out of the bedroom. It was like walking on jello that was waving. You were never sure where the floor was. It was here and then it was here while you were trying to take a step, moving sideways and jiggling up and down. And it took my feet out from under me. Now I'm afraid I'm going to crush my little daughter. And then it got louder and there was a huge crash, and I thought, well, this place is about to come down around my ears. I think my life is going to be over sooner than I thought it would, but there it is. And I will tell you, it was scary up till then, but when you make up your mind, well, I'm dead. It's not really scary anymore. That's just a fact. That's how it is. I've done everything I can do, and I can't get out of here. So I put my little girl down on the floor. I was carrying her like a football so I wouldn't squash her. I have a free hand. And so I lay down on the floor and put one shoulder down and tucked her under the other one and rolled it over and waited for the roof to come down. I thought, well, maybe I can create, I'm going to be dead for sure, but maybe I can create enough of an airspace for her to stay alive and breathing. And maybe somebody will hear her crying. There are going to be rescuers that will come around eventually and dig her out of here, because there's nothing more I can do. And then it stopped. And I went in to see how my wife was doing. She was the whitest white woman you have ever seen at that moment. She looked like the color of flour. And I said, get your clothes on, we're going to get out of here. There are probably broken gas lines. Fires sometimes follow earthquakes. And there could be another jolt. So we need to get out of the house. Checked on our neighbors. They were okay. We drove over. I was teaching at Master's College, so we drove over to make sure everybody was all right over there. There was a dorm built on the side of a hill. I thought, well, we're going to find that thing down at the street somewhere. And it was intact. For some reason, the quake hadn't hit quite so hard there, and it was only a couple miles from my house. One of the athletes there, when the thing hit, had sat up in bed, and he'd had a 16-pound shot for track and field sitting up on a shelf. So the quake woke him up. He sat up, and that shot landed on his pillow about the time he sat up. That had crushed his head like an egg. Nobody was hurt over there. There were some fires, and a few miles away, down toward the epicenter, there was a VA hospital that collapsed. 44 guys died in that. And one of my college mates, she was a little older, a nurse, had been working down there. And later she told us, what it was like, that the way down, the elevators weren't working, all the power was out. So they started escorting patients who could walk down the stairs, and the walls had pinched in so that you could just barely get by one at a time. So 44 people were killed down there, 60 some altogether, I think 66, 67. Including two guys down the freeway just a little way whose timing was terrible. There was an overpass there, and it broke off on both ends, and the whole thing came down on the pickup that these guys were in. It turned out there were two of them. They didn't know at first. I mean, you couldn't tell anybody was in there. The pickup was about that high. Several people killed at another hospital, but obviously it wasn't me. So, it occurs to you after something like that every day you have after that is a gift that you didn't think you were going to have. Well, that's quite a lot to be thankful for. So 3 children later and 6 grandchildren later. There's more than one reason why I have their pictures around my office. I really did not expect to be around for that. So I'm going to be 73 in a couple weeks, so I got a lot of additional days and hours that I really had no right to expect. It took us the rest of the day to get a phone call through to my parents who lived up in the Bay Area, and they'd been watching television. Be careful about the news. They said, we heard Newhall had just been wiped out. I said, no, it wasn't wiped out. There's some damages, and there's a gas line a half mile or so away with fire pouring out of it because it broke, and they'll get that shut off eventually. But we're okay. It readjusts your estimation of what's important. I'm pretty sure on the evening before, if I had dropped one of the nice class dishes that I had bought my wife for our first anniversary, she'd have been really upset. They were all gone. There was nothing left of what was in our kitchen except smashed stuff all over the floor. And it didn't matter at all. We just got a broom and swept it up and figured we'd get some more dishes. Dishes are replaceable. People aren't. So, there were some good things that came out of a very frightening and destructive time. And one of them is learning what to be thankful for, learning what matters, and not worrying too much about stuff that's just stuff. It's okay. You can get more, or you can just eat off the table, or make a sandwich. It's okay. So, that's the February 9th, 1971. that's a date that made me thankful for a lot of things that I might have otherwise taken for granted. I don't take them for granted anymore.